I've lifted for over a decade in this garage gym with this very rack. I've hit a ton of milestone PRs, reviewed a bunch of awesome equipment, and done some pretty awesome stuff right here. But today, I think I'm ready for a change. It's alive! What's up everyone, Joe Gray here today to talk about my brand new rack, the Iron Bull Strength Frankenstein rack. Why have I jumped ship from my tried and true Rogue R3? Well, mostly because keeping a 2x3 rack limits my rack attachment options. And I see all these cool things from Dialed Motion, Rep Fitness, Prime Fitness, and others, and I really wanted to fully open that door. Plus, this rack, which we'll dig into in a bit, checked all of my boxes and has some nifty tricks up its sleeves. If you watched my previous videos, you know my reviews are months in the works, not days or weeks. So today is what I call a first look for the Iron Bull Strength Frankenstein rack. I'll share some glamour shots, discuss my initial impressions, my general plans for this rack in my gym. For me, this will be my rack in my gym where I squat, bench, and do a lot of my work from for the foreseeable future. Expect to see 500-pound squats, 300-pound benches, tons of accessory work, a boatload of rack attachments tested and reviewed right here, and much more. My last rack was up for over a decade, so I'm excited to see how long this one lasts. Quick housekeeping items for you. This rack was sent to me for free from Iron Bull for sake of providing feedback and review, and some of the items I'll discuss in today's video were also sent for free or at a discount for similar reasons. I have a number of affiliate relationships with the companies, including Iron Bull, who also sponsors my garage gym competition. If you decide to grab anything I discussed today, the links will be in the description for you, some of which are affiliate links. Using those links helps me do my thing here and throughout the home gym community. Obviously, my hope is that none of that impacts my judgment and feedback, but keep all of that in mind as we go. I appreciate your support. Let's dig into this rack. A little history on how this rack came to life. I was chatting with Flex Marks the Spot about a concept to have a 3x3 rack with 1-inch holes in the front and 5/8-inch holes on the back for various reasons. He then showed me his idea, which I mentioned to Iron Bull. They loved it, ran with it, and here we are today with the Frankenstein rack. So all credit goes to Mark for bringing this idea to the forefront and Iron Bull for being excited to make something a little different. What exactly is the Frankenstein rack? It is a 3x3 power rack that is configurable in a number of fashions, from 4-post to 6-post in different heights and depths, and even simply grabbing uprights. I went with a 4-post because it fits better in my space. I opted for the 36-inch rack, which is bigger than my R3, giving me some extra room for activities. And I went with the tallest offering they have, as 8 foot fits in my garage nicely. I also opted for a front cross member and rear nameplate to give me more attachment points and a little more aesthetic pop. But what makes it truly unique are the key holes on all 4 sides of the uprights and cross members from top to bottom and side to side. They have both a 1-inch and 5/8-inch hole stacked together to make the keyhole. Other companies have used this design before in various ways. Nebula, I believe, was the original creator for gym equipment. Rogue, after acquiring Nebula, has used it sparingly on the sides of their uprights, but no one else currently is using it like this. And Iron Bull has brought their own adjustments to the design idea as well, which we'll talk about in a bit. Now, why is this a feature worth getting excited about? First, out the gate, you have access to all 3x3 attachments without any adjustments. 1-inch, 5/8-inch, it doesn't matter. Second is that this opens up the door for Iron Bull to leverage the keyhole design for attachments. Let's take something like rack handles. You slide them into the appropriate hole and then you tension them down on the other side. The problem is that they can still rotate, especially under heavy loads. If they had a keyhole design using both 1-inch and 5/8-inch holes at the same time, it is no longer round, meaning it can't rotate. You also have the possibility to leverage the keyhole design in a drop-in fashion. If we look at my mass storage setup, the way the shelves and uprights connect is a similar concept. Instead of needing something that tensions on the backside, it simply drops into place and locks in via gravity. Both of these would require attachments to be designed specifically to take advantage of the keyhole system, so not necessarily something we have right now, but a possibility if Iron Bowl or other attachment manufacturers decide to explore this further. And third, which is one of the main reasons I was sold on the idea, with a typical 1-inch hardware rack, you get full attachment compatibility by means of a spacer from F&F steel, meaning that 1-inch attachments work and 5/8-inch attachments can be converted. But you lose west side spacing. As someone lifting decently heavy weights by themselves, this is a tough compromise. With 5/8-inch, you gain west side spacing, but lose attachment compatibility. Now you can't grab any 1-inch attachments and have to hope for 5/8-inch for anything you're looking for. With the keyholes, each of the 5/8-inch holes is 2 inches apart from each other, and the 1-inch holes are 2 inches apart from each other. If I take a 5/8-inch J-cup attachment and the 5/8-inch hole is a little off from my ideal on-rack position, I can add that same F&F steel piece, and now I can adjust my J-cup up another inch, effectively giving me west side spacing throughout the rack for any 5/8-inch attachments I have, throughout the entire rack upright, something I struggled with in my Rogue R3 as I only had it for my safeties. Now I get it for my monos and J-cups regardless of what movement I'm doing. So we get some immediate wins with a few potential future wins too. One thing to note, the Iron Bowl keyhole is slightly different than the keyholes on a Rogue rack. Iron Bowl added a little more detail to the 5/8-inch hole so that 5/8-inch pins wouldn't wiggle loose and into the 1-inch holes. This is a benefit, but does make their system not compatible with any current keyhole attachments on the market. The rack I was sent has the keyhole design throughout, meaning that it is on the cross members and the uprights. Some of the other dudes getting these uprights have gotten only the uprights with the keyholes. My gut reaction is that if you're going for the keyhole design, you're better off going all in on them and getting them on every square inch of your rack, which would let you use 5/8-inch or 1-inch attachments anywhere, instead of just on the uprights. The majority of the rack was packaged in cardboard boxes, which were added to a pallet and wrapped up tight. Nice and easy solution. The uprights, however, were placed in individual cardboard boxes with nothing more than a plastic wrap inside and some tape on the outside. One upright had completely busted out of both sides of the box, and all but one of the uprights had visible damage to the boxes. One was even lost in transit and created some delays, which I'll talk about in just a second. If they were bundled together, wrapped tight, fitted with foam and palletized like the other items, I'm betting you wouldn't have this problem. So there's some possible improvements in the packaging department here. This takes me into an issue with Iron Bowl's communication and processes. When I receive products from companies, I almost always get the full customer experience, meaning that I get shipping info, tracking numbers, and all the regular updates from FedEx, UPS, you name it. With Iron Bowl, I got a confirmation of order on March 20th. The next update came the week of April 11th when I asked for one. I don't like to bug companies that are sending me stuff very often, but something as big as a rack change in my gym needed a little bit of planning. I was told the rack would ship that week. Awesome. Several weeks go by and I don't hear anything, so I check back in the week of May 2nd for an update. I'm told that my rack had been stuck at the border since April 20th, that Iron Bowl never got a notice, but that they were working on it. On May 12th, after not hearing anything, I call the shipping company directly to get details, and I'm told that they only have 4 of the 5 skids from the manifest, and they need an update from Iron Bowl. I email Iron Bowl and let them know, and I get an update on May 20th that they have ordered me a replacement upright for the one that got lost in the original order. The full rack was delivered by freight on May 29th, and the replacement upright was delivered on June 3rd by UPS. So it took just over 2 months from order to delivery. Now, I'm more than accustomed to dealing with delays with new products, smaller companies, and especially companies finding their way through the processes. Iron Bowl's production center was finalized in September of 2024, so they have only been rocking with making racks, plates, bars, and other items in-house for about 6 months. So some hiccups are to be expected. but Iron Bull has some gaps in their communication and processes that need to be addressed. I talked to Michael over at Jungle Gym Reviews, who also didn't get any updates until the freight delivery company called him to schedule delivery. He had some missing parts and some interesting experiences with assembly as well. So make sure you check out his video when it drops for those details. John Grease of Garage Gym Life had similar experiences, and Tim from Gymcrafter has already mentioned in a previous video that he waited several months for a rack and finally moved on after not being able to get an update or reliable ETA. So this isn't exactly a one-off issue that I went through. Iron Bull was able to remedy the issue for me with the upright, but that only happened after multiple emails, phone calls on my end, and more. When I mentioned some of these issues, I was told that all customers, including the reviewers, receive ongoing and frequent updates about their order process. I had to reiterate that this was, unfortunately, not the case for anyone I had talked to. So their expectations were not their reality. When I got the replacement upright, it was shipped via UPS, and I got an order confirmation, UPS shipping notification, and regular updates. So I think their main issue is actually around communications centered around freight deliveries. But I will add that the UPS upright was packed the same way and also had visible damage to the box. Okay, let's take a look at assembly. I borrowed a buddy of mine to help me assemble the rack. It took a little over an hour total. If this is your first piece of gym equipment, be forewarned, there are currently no installation instructions available. It also did not come with any tools, so you'll need the various sockets, wrenches, etc. My Rogue rack also had a full set of compression washers for every bolt, which this rack did not. Just something to note. If you have assembled any kind of gym equipment before, have the various tools, and don't have any hiccups or issues in delivery, this should be a pretty straightforward process with 2 people. After assembling and a quick wipe down, I did find that there were no scuffs, dents, or visible dings left over from the packaging mishaps, so that's a bonus too. I'm overall very excited about this rack, having a hand behind the scenes to make it come to life, having it custom colored to my liking, for the most part, and the overall abilities it brings to my gym compared to other items on the market is what made me finally take the leap. I've been offered a dozen racks in the past few years and never said yes because I never really felt like they were an upgrade. This was finally the one. I will be coming back later this year with a full home gym tour video, and I'll give an update and some long-term thoughts on this rack, and hopefully provide an update on Iron Bull's processes. I'm really pulling for them because their product launch list they displayed during their Our Home Gym AMA was awesome, but I think they have already realized they are taking on too much. So I'm here for it. I just need to see a few things improve before I can confidently tell you to send them your business. Let's jump into the rack attachments that I am tossing on here to start with. Let's start with the basics, the items that came from Iron Bull. They custom colored my sandwich J-cups to match my black primary and white secondary, but unfortunately they didn't custom color the strap safeties. I will be pairing the J-cups with the strap safeties for my squats, and for bench, you know I've got my Mutant Metal snapback rollers. Chris sent me over some 3x3 shims to convert my 2x3 pair to fit the new rack, as well as shims for the UDA to do the same. I'll be using a pair of spotter arms from Bremy for my bench safeties. These are an awesome low profile option for spotters since they pop in sideways. I also plan to use this as mobile arms for a number of other attachments and creative ideas I have. Bremy also sent me a pair of weight storage pins. Because the new rack has some taller, low cross members, I need to move on from deadlifting inside my rack. So my plan is to figure out a solution, putting my probably 2 pairs of hundos, likely on a rear lower cross member, ditching the platform under the rack to clear some walking space, and see where we land. If anyone has any tips or tricks on free floating a rack without putting all of your weights on it, drop it in the comments and help a brother out. Of course, I have my Voltra 1s, and a big upgrade for this rack is the new Darko quick mounts. So I can hook them all over my rack, even use the Bremy spotters to put them in various positions, like a pivot arm for wide crossovers and more. Since the Darko mounts can be 1 inch or 5/8 inch, I have a ton of creative options here too. And out the gate, when I showed my wife these mounts compared to the main ones we've been using, she just said, well, that just makes sense. Nicely done, Darko, and my dude Dan, aka Dr. Tatty Waffles, for this one. Rep was nice enough to send over their Pegasus, which is going to be a badass addition to the Voltras for pulldowns. Plus, I've got some other tricks up my sleeve there. I managed to snag Rep's belt squat rack attachment off Marketplace this week, and I'm hoping to use that as well with my Voltras for some belt squats, RDLs, and other variations. I'm hoping to really be able to leverage the Voltras as my main cable system within this rack. Eventually, I want to move away from the FT2, so making sure the Voltras are operating at maximum efficiency is going to be a priority. I've got a pair of the surplus strength VECHS speed pins. I chose these specifically for the carabiner hookup for bands, since I do bands for warm-ups and stretches fairly often. Throughout my rack, I'm using Oak Club mag pins with a nice red finish. I've got some 5/8 inch and 1 inch options for my rack as well. I also got their KLO step, which is going to get a lot of play for step-ups, a favorite in our garage. I'll mount the Oak mini hoop for some between set dunk contests, and my original bench dock from Mutant Metals, before he was even Mutant Metals, still works for the most part. If I go the route of a rear cross member at some point, I'll tinker with a more formal bench dock solution, but as of right now, that's still getting the job done. And we'll finish it off with a couple of super duper extra pieces. First are the rack badges from Darko to add a little flair to my rack. You can get these in basically any kind of custom orientation or look and feel you want. I replaced every washer on the rack with a set of red 3D printed washers from Aperture Engineering to give me a little pop of color throughout. And finished it off with the rack beanies and thread armor from Frog Fits. These cover up the basic hardware throughout the rack and help me complete that seamless look. You can get these in a handful of stock color combos or custom order to your liking. Obviously, none of this was necessary, but the goal was to really go all in on this rack and take advantage of the last 10 years of my home gym enthusiast knowledge and really make this rack my own. I'm going to take the next several months and kind of leave the rack as is, dig into what I've got laid out here, see what I like, what I don't, and then make adjustments as I see fit. I'll likely be doing some DIY aesthetic changes, changing some paint colors, adding accents to pieces and more, which I will share in that full home gym tour video slated for the end of the year. If you want to see any of those pieces before that and want to make sure you don't miss anything as it progresses, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. Link is in the description. And that, my friends, is my brand new Iron Bull Strength Frankenstein rack with all my current rack attachments. If anything I talked about today piqued your interest, I've got links in the description for you. But I want two things from you before you leave. First, let me know what you think about this keyhole concept in the comments. Should more companies explore this? Should they just go with 1 inch, 5/8 inch, just pick one and go with it? What do you think? Second, let me know what other rack attachments, accessories, and things I should take a look at and review for this rack. I've got my eyes on a couple items, but I want to know what you think as well. If you like rack attachments, make sure you check out the Voltra 1 and Snapback videos I did here and here. And if you like the video, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back with more home gym awesomeness for all of you very soon. Peace.